News!
Okay, we'll start with this. WBC President Mauricio Suleiman recently responded to legislation that would prevent sanctioning bodies from mass-producing alphabet titles, the way they have been, at the same weight. The additions recently made to the Muhammad Ali Act. In an open letter to the boxing community and the world at large, he said everything is going to be all right. Unfortunately, our sport is currently in the headlines all over the world, but for the wrong reasons. A powerful entity worth billions of dollars is shouting in an attempt to make itself heard regarding its intent to enter boxing and dominate the sport while eliminating promoters and sanctioning organizations. Their aim to alter the landscape of boxing in pursuit of profit cannot be ignored, and it needs to be seen for what it is, an attempted takeover of the people's sport, which should not be owned or dominated by any single entity. Those efforts include spending millions of dollars to modify and introduce new laws in the United States of America, and they've used money and influence to buy testimonials and promote scripted interviews on networks they own. You say they're getting into the sport of boxing to make money. What are you in it for? The hugs and the handshakes? Money can buy many things. However, no one is rich enough to buy back their past or erase their actions, which are facts. Glory, history, reputation, service, and integrity can never be bought. It is as simple as that. You talk about integrity as if you've got any. Boxing is the greatest sport in the world. It is the one that offers opportunities to those who come from humble beginnings and overcome obstacles, hoping to become someone in life. Those girls and boys who dream of winning a gold medal for their country or winning the WBC green belt to become world champions. The reason the WBC exists is for the boxers before, during, and after their years in the ring. In these times of uncertainty, fighters all over the world who have worked tirelessly to achieve everything they have earned should know that the World Boxing Council has their backs, and it will continue to do so unconditionally. Boxing is comprised of the WBC, WBO, IBF, and WBA titles. Those titles mean the world to those who are able to conquer them. Boxing has promoters such as PBC, Top Rank, Golden Boy, Matchroom, Queensbury, Taken, Simpson Boxing, Zenfer, Latin KO, Don King Promotions, and hundreds of other companies around the world. These companies promote boxing within an industry that provides opportunities to boxers in a free market, where the majority of the money generated in each event goes to the boxers themselves. Period. There is no entity, league, person, or champion larger than the sport. Boxing is a worldwide sport that has thrived for 150 years and counting, giving millions of fans memories they will remember for a lifetime. Boxing has also evolved and changed its rules, continuing to do so in order to make the sport safer for those who enter the ring. Don't worry, everything will be all right. Just keep going, do what you do. Long live boxing. Mauricio didn't address it outright because if he did, the changes to the Ali Act, the real reason that he wrote this letter, is because if he did, he would be forced to address the unethical practices that he's been getting away with for a long time now. What this is really all about are the recent additions to the Muhammad Ali Act that would prohibit an alphabet organization from mass-producing alphabet titles, the way that the WBC has been doing, and the WBA. Those two more than anybody. The new provisions indicate there can only be one alphabet title per sanctioning body in circulation. The way it's supposed to be. So no more WBA Super, WBA Regular, WBA Gold, WBA Interim, WBC Interim. An interim champion can now only be crowned in the event that the real champion is otherwise unable to compete. And that's the way that it's supposed to be. It's all in the name. Interim. This is the champion in the interim, while the real champion is recovering from an injury or dealing with a legal matter, extenuating circumstances, the way that it's supposed to be, but that's not the way that it's been. We all know that. The WBC and the WBA have been handing out different versions of the same title at the same weight like Halloween candy, to the point they're diluting the sport, making it confusing for casual fans, and watering down what it really means to be a champion in the sport, since you've got so many different champions running around.
That's what Mauricio's in his tits about. That's why he wrote this long-winded letter, but that's also why he didn't address it outright, because if he did, it would force him to confront his own unethical practices. The sport is not made better based on how many WBC titles you can mass produce.
The only real reason you want to mass produce so many different versions of the same title is so you can collect that many more sanctioning fees from that many more fighters.
It's obvious. If you've got 3 or 4 different versions of the same title, that allows you to collect sanctioning fees from 3 or 4 different fighters. It's very obvious. I only wonder that because the World Boxing Council isn't actually based in the United States,
where this recent legislation has been passed.
I've been telling you guys for a long time that outside of the United States, the Muhammad Ali Act is not a thing. So even if this bill did get passed, what stops the World Boxing Council or the World Boxing Association from awarding an interim title to a fighter outside of the United States? Since the WBA is based out of Panama and the World Boxing Council is based out of Mexico, how do you enforce this?
When there are plenty of boxing matches that happen outside of America's borders,
how do you ensure that the alphabets play by your rules? The Ali Act is only a thing in the United States.
I mean, this is not a bad thing. Boxing fans have been complaining about this for years, to no avail.
So I'm not against this legislation, I only question its effectiveness. I think it's necessary. These alphabet organizations have done the sport more harm than good, and with impunity, because as boxing became less of a mainstream sport and more of a niche sport fading into the background, all the regulation and oversight went away, so there was nobody around to keep them in check and remind them that they're not the ones in charge.
Less interim titles means less interim champions, less confusion.
The way it was, the mandatory challenger for a full champion could have been the interim champion, the diamond, the silver, in some instances the #1 contender. All very confusing. Eliminating all of those secondary titles makes it a lot more simple, and thus, a lot more fair.
But also a lot more difficult to get away with corruption. When you have that many guys holding that many versions of a title,
the WBC would make the final decision which one of those guys gets the title shot, and it wasn't always the guy that deserved it, and the decision was not always consistent. Sometimes it's the guy with the interim, sometimes it's the guy with the diamond, with the silver, sometimes it's the guy ranked at #1. It never made sense. Eliminating all those secondary titles...
Oh, now it does, because it shouldn't be anybody other than the #1 contender.
I only wonder how it is they're going to enforce this when the World Boxing Council is based out of Mexico, not the United States, and not every boxing match that happens in the United States.
And what about the part where Mauricio says, these companies promote boxing within an industry that provides opportunities to boxers in a free market, where the majority of the money generated in each event goes to the boxers themselves?
Your average boxing fan doesn't think to question whether or not that's the right thing to do. In case you haven't noticed, all of the major networks in America have withdrawn from boxing because it doesn't provide a big enough return for their investment. They're the ones investing.
You just say the money should go to the boxers, and it goes to the boxers because it sounds good.
But it doesn't make for a sustainable business. And that's why all the major broadcasters, practically all of them, have withdrawn. Without their money to finance these boxing matches, there is no money to go to the boxers, to go to anybody. So something needs to change. Mauricio doesn't like it.
Some of the fans don't like it.
But I'll tell you now that if not for Turki El Sheikh's entry into the sport of boxing and Zuffa's launch, boxing may not have had a leg to stand on right now. PBC is in a bad way, so is Top Rank.
And it's not because of anything Turkey did. What happened to PBC and what's happening to Top Rank was always going to happen. What might happen to Golden Boy Promotions now? They were already headed in that direction.
Bottom line is that tired old claptrap about the money should go to the boxers, most of the money should go to the boxers, yeah, we've seen that, and it ain't working. So something needs to change.
Or we won't have a sport to talk about.
And you won't have boxing matches to sanction.
In men's cruiserweight news, Tasman Fighters insists Zuffa will allow Jai Opetaia to unify. Insights into how it was he ended up crossing over from Matchroom over to Zuffa. And it's not what I originally thought. With the announcement that cruiserweight champion Jai Opetaia has signed with Zuffa Boxing, opinions were split about the hard-hitting Aussie's ambitions, but Opetaia's manager, Mick Francis, has confirmed that unifications remain a priority for the lineal and IBF champion, even though Zuffa boss Dana White said he had no intention of entertaining sanctioning bodies. One of the concerns was that they didn't recognize the sanctioning bodies, Francis told Boxing King Media. However, probably to sweeten the deal and get Jai across the line is that they will let Jai fight for the titles and unify his division, which is exactly what he wants to do. This is where it gets interesting. Francis said Opetaia did not have any other promotional offers and that he had signed to be the face of the upstart company. So Matchroom didn't try to re-sign him? His personal brand will blow up and go through the roof, and that's something we've always wanted to do, and he'll get the opportunity to unify, Francis added. Jai wants to unify the titles. He wants someone to believe in him and to support him and someone behind him. Yeah, Jai has fought on Riyadh season, and that's been a massive shot in the arm to a lot of fighters and promoters globally, and it's been a really good thing. I feel Riyadh season is slowing down a little bit. Last year, Jai fought 3 times in Australia. Putting on title fights in Australia is hard because we just don't have that population, and it's hard fiscally. Opetaia's last appearance on a Riyadh season bill was against Jack Macy in late 2024. Francis said they had 2 fights bookmarked this year, one that would be announced soon, and a big fight later in the year against the light heavyweight who wants to come up. He just wants to fight the best. He wants to go up against whoever's got the belts. However, over at Boxing Social, WBC President Mauricio Suleiman was not so positive about Zuffa's entry into the marketplace. Why would he be? It's creating all these problems for him, since Zuffa's handlers have friends in high places. We've already been all through those comments. What caught my attention about Mick Francis's comments is that they weren't offered an extension with Matchroom. At the end of the deal, they decided to cut him loose. He wasn't poached by Zuffa, he was let go by Matchroom. The journos recently caught up with Frank Smith and asked him about it.
The Jai Opetaia situation. Obviously, you guys worked with Jai. Also, I think Gold Star were involved in somewhat. Tasman Fighters, right? Where did that breakdown come, and did you expect this from Jai Opetaia? Was it something that you knew about long before it was announced, or was it a shock?
Look, Jai has been, we obviously promoted him for a number of fights. His last fight was on Stan. Of course, we've got an exclusive broadcast agreement with DAZN, so we weren't really involved in that last fight. We've been involved in the fights prior to that. It is what it is. Fighters come, I've been asked this question, like, there's so many fighters that you can look at and go, we should have done something with it, or we should have extended with them, or we should, like...
You put a lot into him, though, in terms of, you just went to Australia, you've done shows there, you were working with Mick Francis.
Yeah, but we never operated our own show there with him. Mick was running a lot of it. And look, it's happened so many times. I'm sure it will happen again. And this is to all promoters, isn't it? Like, fighters come, fighters go. I think, and we were talking about it last night, when you look at like Anthony Joshua, we've promoted him since his professional debut, right? We've worked with him for 12 years. It's been the best relationship you could ever have had. And I think fighters, it's very easy to jump around and go, well, there's a little bit more here, there's a little bit more there. But actually in the sport of boxing, what you need is someone who's completely committed to you and will do anything for you. And it's a commercial business at the same time, right? So people naturally, their mind is always going to jump to, can I get an extra $1 here, right? But you have to think about it in the long term. And not everyone does that. But it's not the first time it's happened. It won't be the last time it happens. And yeah, is it frustrating when you invest money? Because at the end of the day, our business is to invest in fighters, right? We invest in fighters and then they go elsewhere. Is it ideal? No, not really, but it is what it is.
I think the point, though, is...
Somewhat unapologetic about the way things worked out. In reality, the situation was untenable. Had Jai Opetaia stayed with Matchroom, he would be no closer to the unification matches he's after than he is right now. It's not something they could guarantee him.
they could get him. It still requires the cooperation of another fighter and another promoter. Zerto doesn't want to fight him. I've been telling you that a million times. And if Zerto loses his belts to David, we don't know that David's going to want to fight him either, or Noel Mikhailian.
So in a situation where Jai Opetaia's deal with you has ended, what reason is there to extend? They decided to cut their losses.
Cut him loose.
But this might actually be the best outcome for everyone. Matchroom is no longer on the hook to get Jai Opetaia fights, but Jai Opetaia gets a second crack at the apple with a different promoter. Now, I don't know that Zuffa will have any more luck getting Jai those unification matches than Matchroom did, but they're going to give it a shot.
The part that caught my attention is that it's not Zuffa poaching Jai Opetaia from Matchroom, it's Zuffa picking him up after he's been jettisoned. It's not Matchroom losing anything they weren't already prepared to lose.
Which is not what I originally thought, though still, there are serious implications to this full 180 from Zuffa, because this is a sharp deviation from what they originally said and what we originally thought.
If they're willing to pick up fighters, champions that hold sanctioning body titles, that opens the door for them to beef up their stable more than we thought.
And at a time where PBC doesn't have any fight dates, Top Rank doesn't have a broadcast partner, very soon Golden Boy could lose theirs, what you could see is a mass exodus of fighters looking for a new home. Some of them might go to Matchroom, some others might go to MVP, and some others might go to Zuffa, like Jai Opetaia just went to Zuffa.
Zuffa's original stance, I think, would have held them back if they just focused on their own Zuffa rankings and their own Zuffa belt. Expanding their horizons like this makes them a legitimate threat.
You can't really become a major player in the industry just picking up B and C and D tier fighters. You can put on some good fights and have a modicum of success, but you can only get so far doing that.
But now doing this, the sky's the limit.
Signing Jai Opetaia leaves the door open for Zuffa to sign other champions, other fighters holding other titles, to strengthen their stable with more familiar faces, and familiarity is what they need.
They're on the right track.